What if the greatest battles were never meant to be fought with weapons? What if the strongest walls could fall without a single strike? This is not just a story of conquest. This is a story of faith, obedience, and a God who gives victory before the battle begins. Now, the city was sealed. Fear had locked every gate. None went out. None came in. Jericho stood, confident in walls of stone, yet trembling before a people it could not understand. After years of wandering, beneath scorching suns and silent nights, they stood at the edge of promise. A generation had passed, lessons had been learned, and now the land once spoken of in whispers lay before them in reality. Yet promise does not remove obstacles. Then spoke the Lord, not in uncertainty but in authority. See, have given Jericho into your hand, single quotes, not I will, but I have single quotes, for in the realm of God, victory is declared before it is seen. Before them stood Jericho, ancient, fortified, unyielding. Its walls were not just built of stone, but of confidence, pride, and fear. The gates are tight, none went ouchie. None came in. It was a city prepared for siege, but not for surrender to the natural eye. It was unconquerable. But the strategy did not match the promise. No weapons raised, no battle cry given, only this: walk around the city, single quotes, once a day, for 6 days. A command so simple, it tested the depth of their faith. At the center was not strategy dash, but presence, the Ark of the Covenant, the symbol of God among men, and before it, 7 priests, with trumpets carved from the horns of sacrifice. This was no ordinary march. This was worship in motion. And the 7th day would not be like the others. Not one circle, but 7, a repetition that would stretch patience and ignite obedience. For sometimes, God waits until the final moment to reveal His power. Step by step, they moved, not knowing how, not asking when, only trusting who. Faith was no longer a word, it had become a walk. Then came the instruction, not carved in logic, but spoken in faith. When the trumpet sounds, let the people respond, not with fear, not with hesitation, but with a shout that rises from trust. A long blast of the ram's horn would pierce the silence, not as a weapon, but as a declaration. For in the kingdom of God, sound is not just heard dash, it carries authority, and the shout that would follow would not be empty noise, it would be agreement with heaven. And Joshua did not hesitate. He did not argue. He did not adjust the plan. He obeyed. The priests were called forward, not soldiers, but servants of the sacred. The ark was lifted not as an object, but as a reminder. God is in the midst of His people. 7 priests, 7 trumpets, a divine pattern unfolding on earth. And the people moved, not because they understood, but because they trusted, for obedience is the language of faith. And so they marched, not as warriors hungry for battle, but as believers walking in instruction. The armed men went before, yet it was not their strength that led. The priests followed, their trumpets crying out dash, utter, sound both strange and sacred. The ark remained at the center dash, the true focus of the procession, and behind it all, the rear guard dash, a reminder that God surrounds His people completely. Around the city they went, again and again, and with every step, a question echoed in the heart. Then, the moment arrived. The air grew still. The marching ceased. Time itself seemed to pause. And in that sacred silence, a decision was made. Would they trust completely or hold back in doubt? Then suddenly, a sound erupted, not from one voice, but from many united. A shout that carried faith, obedience, and expectation. They did not shout at the walls. They shouted because God had already spoken. And when faith finds its voice, impossibilities begin to tremble. And the walls began to respond, not to human strength, But to divine authority, stone trembled. Foundations cracked, that what seemed unshakable started to give way. In a moment that history would never forget, Jericho fell, not broken by force, but surrendered by the hand of God. The barriers that once mocked them became pathways beneath their feet, for when God declares a victory, no wall can stand in resistance. And they moved forward, not in confusion, but in clarity, every man straight before him, no wandering, no delay. The path was open, the obstacle was gone. What once required effort, now required only movement. For this is the way of God. He brings down what you cannot break, and then calls you to walk through what he has opened. Yet, even in the midst of judgment, mercy found its way. Rahab, once hidden in the shadows of Jericho, now revealed in the light of grace. She had believed when others doubted. She had acted when others resisted, and her faith marked her for salvation. While walls fell around her, her house stood a reminder that God does not forget those who trust him, even in unlikely places. And the city was given to fire, not as an act of cruelty, but as an act of consecration. Jericho was the first, and the first belongs to God. Nothing was taken for personal gain. Nothing was claimed for human pride. Everything was surrendered. The silver, the gold, the vessels of bronze and iron, gathered not as spoil, but as sacred offering. For victory is dangerous when it feeds the flesh, but powerful when it honors the Lord. And she was brought out, not as an outsider, but as one welcomed in. Her past did not define her, that her faith did. And from the ruins of Jericho, a new story began, a story of transformation, of redemption, of belonging. For God is not only the one who brings walls down, he is the one who lifts people up. And in the end, Jericho was not just a victory of conquest, it was a testimony that faith, obedience, and reverence will always move the hand of God. And when the walls fell, it was not the end of a battle. It was the beginning of understanding that faith can move what strength cannot, that obedience can unlock what effort cannot, and that every promise of God stands firm, even when everything around it seems impossible. So when you stand before your own walls, remember Jericho, for the God who brought them down, that has not changed. If this message spoke to you, don't let it end here. Like and subscribe to this video so more people can see it. Share it with someone facing their own walls. And tell me in the comments, what Jericho are you believing God to bring down? Because your story might be the faith someone else needs.